In this video, we are going to talk about Hurricane Harvey rescue operations, mainly focusing on Air Force Special Operations Command's Pararescuemen. FEMA worked with the Coast Guard, Customs and Border Protection, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement to prepare for the storm and its aftermath. The agency placed disaster response teams on standby at emergency posts in Austin, Texas, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Hurricane Harvey was a devastating Category 4 hurricane that made landfall on Texas and Louisiana in August 2017, causing catastrophic flooding and more than 100 deaths. It is tied with 2005's Hurricane Katrina as the costliest tropical cyclone on record, inflicting $125 billion in damage, primarily from catastrophic rainfall-triggered flooding in the Houston metropolitan area and southeast Texas. This made the storm the costliest natural disaster recorded in Texas at the time. It was the first major hurricane to make landfall in the United States since Wilma in 2005, ending a record 12-year span, in which no hurricanes made landfall at the intensity of a major hurricane throughout the country. In a 4-day period, many areas received more than 40 inches of rain, as the system slowly meandered over eastern Texas and adjacent waters, causing unprecedented flooding. With peak accumulations of 60.58 inches, in Netherlands, Texas, Harvey was the wettest tropical cyclone on record in the United States. The resulting floods inundated hundreds of thousands of homes, which displaced more than 30,000 people, and prompted more than 17,000 rescues. Air Force Special Operations Command's Pararescuemen, also known as PJs, are the only Defense Department specialty specifically trained and equipped to conduct conventional or unconventional rescue operations. These battlefield airmen are the ideal force for personnel recovery and combat search and rescue. A PJ's primary function is as a personnel recovery specialist, with emergency medical capabilities in humanitarian and combat environments. PJs deploy in any available manner, including air, land, sea tactics, and into restricted environments to authenticate, extract, treat, stabilize, and evacuate injured personnel. PJs participate in search and rescue, combat search and rescue, recovery support for NASA, and conduct other operations as appropriate. Pararescuemen are among the most highly trained emergency trauma specialists in the U.S. military. They must maintain an emergency medical technician paramedic qualification throughout their careers. With this medical and rescue expertise, along with their deployment capabilities, PJs are able to perform life-saving missions in the world's most remote areas. Their motto, "That others may live," reaffirms the PJs' commitment to saving lives and self-sacrifice. Without PJs, thousands of service members and civilians would have been lost unnecessarily in past conflicts and natural disasters. Pararescuemen endure some of the toughest training offered in the U.S. military. Their training, as well as their unique mission, earns them the right to wear the maroon beret. They complete the same technical training as EMT paramedics, plus the following physical and specialized training. This 10-week indoctrination course trains future PJs through extensive physical conditioning. Training accomplished at this course includes physiological training, obstacle course, rucksack marches, dive physics, dive tables, metric manipulations, medical terminology, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, weapons qualifications, PJ history and leadership reaction course. The 8th named storm, 3rd hurricane, and first major hurricane of the extremely active 2017 Atlantic hurricane season, Harvey developed from a tropical wave to the east of the Lesser Antilles, reaching tropical storm status on August 17. The storm crossed through the Windward Islands on the following day, making landfall on the southern end of Barbados, and a second landfall on St. Vincent. Upon entering the Caribbean, Harvey began to weaken due to moderate wind shear, and degenerated into a tropical wave north of Colombia, late on August 19. The remnants were monitored for regeneration as it continued west-northwestward across the Caribbean and the Yucatan Peninsula, before redeveloping over the Bay of Campeche on August 23. Harvey then began to rapidly intensify on August 24, regaining tropical storm status, and becoming a hurricane later that day. While the storm moved generally northwest, Harvey's intensification phase stalled slightly overnight from August 24-25. However, Harvey soon resumed strengthening, and quickly became a major hurricane, attaining Category 4 intensity later that day, a peak 1-minute sustained winds of 130 miles per hour. Hours later, Harvey made landfall at San Jose Island, Texas, at peak intensity, followed by another landfall at Holiday Beach at Category 3 intensity. Rapid weakening then ensued, and Harvey had downgraded to a tropical storm as it stalled near the coastline, dropping torrential and unprecedented amounts of rainfall over Texas. On August 28, the storm emerged back over the Gulf of Mexico, strengthening slightly before making a 5th and final landfall in Louisiana on August 29. As Harvey drifted inland, it quickly weakened again as it became extratropical on September 1, before dissipating 2 days later. In addition to the huge cost and extent of the damage it caused, Harvey caused at least 107 confirmed deaths. 1 in Guyana and 106 in the United States, the first one in Rockport, Texas. Due to the extensive damage, the name Harvey was retired in April 2018 and will not be used for another Atlantic tropical cyclone. It was replaced with Harold for the 2023 hurricane season. Upon the National Hurricane Center resuming advisories for Harvey at 1500 hours UTC on August 23, a hurricane watch was issued in Texas from Port Mansfield to San Luis Pass, while a tropical storm watch was posted from Port Mansfield south to the mouth of the Rio Grande and from San Luis Pass to High Island. Additionally, a storm surge watch became in effect from Port Mansfield to High Island. Additional watches and warnings were posted in these areas at 9 o'clock UTC on August 24, with a hurricane warning from Port Mansfield to Matagorda, a tropical storm warning from Matagorda to High Island, a hurricane watch and tropical storm warning from Port Mansfield to the Rio Grande, a storm surge warning from Port Mansfield to San Luis Pass, and a storm surge watch from Port Mansfield to the Rio Grande. As the hurricane neared landfall on August 24, an extreme wind warning indicating an immediate threat of 115–145 miles per hour winds was issued for areas expected to be impacted by the eyewall. This included parts of Aransas, Calhoun, Nueces, Refugio, and San Patricio counties. The watches and warnings were adjusted accordingly after Harvey moved inland and began weakening, with the warning discontinued at 1500 hours UTC on August 26. By 9 o'clock UTC on the following day, only a tropical storm warning and a storm surge warning remained in effect from Port O'Connor to Sargent. However, watches and warnings were reissued as Harvey began to re-emerge into the Gulf of Mexico, and beginning at 1500 hours UTC on August 28, a tropical storm warning was in effect for the entire Gulf Coast of Texas from High Island northward. Governor Greg Abbott declared a state of emergency for 30 counties on August 23, while mandatory evacuations were issued for Brazoria, Calhoun, Jackson, Refugio, San Patricio, and Victoria counties, as well as parts of Matagorda County. On August 26, Governor Abbott added an additional 20 counties to the state of emergency declaration. Furthermore, the International Charter on Space and Major Disasters was activated by the USGS on behalf of the Governor's Texas Emergency Management Council, including the Texas Division of Emergency Management, thus providing for humanitarian satellite coverage. In Louisiana, Governor John Bell Edwards declared a state of emergency for the entire state. A mandatory evacuation was ordered in Cameron Parish for the cities of Big Lake, Cameron, Creole, Grand Chenier, Hackberry, Holly Beach, and Johnson Bayou. Additionally, a voluntary evacuation was ordered in Vermilion Parish for low-lying areas south of State Highway 14. The Louisiana National Guard prepared about 500,000 sandbags and emergency boats, and high-water rescue vehicles were placed on standby, should flooding occur. In New Orleans, there were concerns about whether or not the city's drainage system could handle a heavy rainfall event, with only 105 of the 120 water pumps being operational, and some power turbines being out of service. The city's public schools, as well as 6 universities and a medical school, closed on August 29. As Harvey began re-emerging into the Gulf of Mexico on August 28, the tropical storm warning in Texas from Mesquite Bay to High Island was extended eastward into Louisiana to the community of Cameron at 12 o'clock UTC, while a tropical storm watch was issued from Cameron to Intercoastal City. The widespread and catastrophic effects of Hurricane Harvey resulted in one of the costliest natural disasters in United States history. An estimated 300,000 structures and 500,000 vehicles were damaged or destroyed in Texas alone. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration estimated total damage at $125 billion, with a 90% confidence interval of $90–160 billion. The scope of flooding in areas with low National Flood Insurance Program (NFIP) participation lends to the large uncertainty in the damage total. This ranks Harvey as the costliest tropical cyclone on record in the country alongside Hurricane Katrina in 2005. However, accounting for inflation and cost increases since 2005, the National Hurricane Center considers Harvey the second costliest. Harvey was the costliest natural disaster recorded in Texas at the time, until it was surpassed in February 2021 by a severe winter storm that crippled the state's power grid, which was estimated to have cost at least $195 billion in damages in Texas. Nationwide, 107 people died in storm-related incidents. 103 in Texas, 2 in Arkansas, 1 in Tennessee, and 1 in Kentucky. Of the deaths in Texas, 68 were from the direct effects of Harvey, the highest such number in the state since 1919. Making landfall as a Category 4 hurricane, Harvey inflicted tremendous damage across Aransas County. Wind gusts were observed up to 132 miles per hour near Port Aransas. Nearly every structure in Port Aransas was damaged, some severely, while significant damage from storm surge also occurred. In Rockport, entire blocks were destroyed by the hurricane's violent eyewall winds. The city's courthouse was severely damaged when a cargo trailer was hurled into it, coming to a stop halfway through the structure. The gymnasium of the Rockport Fulton High School lost multiple walls, while the school itself suffered considerable damage. Many homes, apartment buildings, and businesses sustained major structural damage from the intense winds, and several were completely destroyed. Numerous boats were damaged or sunk at a marina in town. Airplanes and structures were destroyed at the Aransas County Airport, and a Fairfield Inn in the city was severely damaged as well. About 20% of Rockport's population was displaced, and they were still unable to return to their homes a year after the hurricane. One person died in a house fire in the city, unable to be rescued due to the extreme weather conditions. Just north of Rockport, many structures were also severely damaged in the nearby town of Fulton. In the small community of Holiday Beach, catastrophic damage occurred as almost every home in town was severely damaged or destroyed by storm surge and violent winds. By the afternoon of August 26, more than 20 inches of rain had fallen in the Corpus Christi metropolitan area. All of Victoria was left without water and most had no power. Throughout Texas, approximately 336,000 people were left without electricity and tens of thousands required rescue. Throughout the state, 103 people died in storm-related incidents, 68 from its direct effects, including flooding, and 35 from indirect effects in the hurricane's aftermath. By August 29, 2017, approximately 13,000 people had been rescued across the state, while an estimated 30,000 were displaced. The refinery industry capacity was reduced, and oil and gas production was affected in the Gulf of Mexico and inland Texas. The closure of oil refineries ahead of Hurricane Harvey created a fuel shortage. Panic motors waited in long lines. Consequently, gas stations through the state were forced to close due to the rush. More than 20% of refining capacity was affected. Coast Guard rescue swimmers about to load up for rescue operations. More than 48,700 homes were affected by Harvey throughout the state, including over 1,000 that were completely destroyed, and more than 17,000 that sustained major damage. Approximately 32,000 sustained minor damage. Nearly 700 businesses were damaged as well. Yet the Texas Department of Public Safety stated more than 185,000 homes were damaged and 9,000 destroyed. Many locations in the Houston metropolitan area observed at least 30 in of precipitation, with a maximum of 60.58 in Netherlands. This makes Harvey the wettest tropical cyclone on record for both Texas and the United States, surpassing the previous rainfall record held by Tropical Storm Amelia. The local National Weather Service office in Houston observed all-time record daily rainfall accumulations on both August 26 and 27, measured at 14.4 inches and 16.08 inches respectively. Due to the amount of rain accumulated from Harvey, the National Weather Service added 2 new colors to the rain index representing around 50% of the maximum rainfall dropped by Harvey. Multiple flash flood emergencies were issued in the Houston area by the National Weather Service beginning the night of August 26. In Pearland, a suburb south of Houston, a report was made of 9.92 of rainfall in 90 minutes. The 39.11 inches of rain in August made the month the wettest ever recorded in Houston since record-keeping began in 1892, more than doubling the previous record of 19.21 inches in June 2001. The storm surge peaked at 6 feet at Port Lavaca, reducing outflow of rainwater from land to sea. During the storm, more than 800 Houston area flights were cancelled, including 704 at George Bush Intercontinental Airport and 123 at William P. Hobby Airport. Both airports eventually closed. Several tornadoes were spawned in the area, one of which damaged or destroyed the roofs of dozens of homes in Sienna Plantation. As of August 29, 14 fatalities have been confirmed from flooding in the Houston area, including 6 from the same family who died when their van was swept off a flooded bridge. A police officer drowned while trying to escape rising waters. Late on August 27, a mandatory evacuation was issued for all of Bay City, as model projections indicated the downtown area would be inundated by 10 feet of water. Flooding was anticipated to cut off access to the city around 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time. On August 28, evacuations took place in Conroe on August 28, following release of water from the Lake Conroe Dam. On the morning on August 29, a levee along Columbia Lakes in Brazoria County was breached, prompting officials to urgently request for everyone in the area to evacuate. On August 28, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers began controlled water releases from Addicks and Barker reservoirs in the Buffalo Bayou watershed, in an attempt to manage flood levels in the immediate area. Only the critical mission control staff remain and reside in the control rooms to monitor procedures of the International Space Station. Energy production in the Gulf of Mexico declined in the wake of Harvey by approximately 21%. The output dropped to 378,633 barrels per day, from the original 1.75 million barrels of oil produced each day. The Eagle Ford Rock Formation, shale oil and gas, in southern Texas, reduced production by 300,000 to 500,000 BPD, according to the Texas Railroad Commission. Many energy-related ports and terminals close, delaying about 14 crude oil tankers. About 2.25 million BPD of refining capacity was offline for several days. That is about 12% of total US capacity, with refineries affected at Corpus Christi, and later Port Arthur and Beaumont, and Lake Charles, Louisiana. The price of Brent crude versus West Texas Intermediate crude oil achieved a split of US $5. Two ExxonMobil refineries had to be shut down following related storm damage and releases of hazardous pollutants. Two oil storage tanks owned by Burlington Resources Oil and Gas collectively spilled 30,000 gallons of crude in DeWitt County. An additional 8,500 gallons of wastewater was spilled in the incidents. On August 30th, the CEO of Arkema warned one of its chemical plants in Crosby, Texas, could explode or be subject to intense fire due to the loss of critical refrigeration of materials. All workers at the facility and residents within 1.5 mi were evacuated. 8 of the plant's 9 refrigeration units failed without power, enabling the stored chemicals to decompose and become combustible. 2 explosions occurred around 2 a.m. on August 31st. 21 emergency personnel were briefly hospitalized. Due to the shutdown in refineries, gas prices did see an increase nationwide. However, the increase was not as extensive as Hurricane Katrina. Additionally, Harvey's impact coincided with Labor Day weekend, which sees a traditional increase in gas prices due to the heavy travel for that weekend. Nonetheless, the spike brought the highest gas prices in 2 years. The flooding in Houston from the storm required the traditional Governor's Cup National Football League preseason game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Houston Texans, scheduled for August 31, to be moved from NRG Stadium in Houston to AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. The game was later canceled to allow the Houston Texans players to return to Houston after the storm. In addition, the Houston Astros were forced to move their August 29-31 series with the Texas Rangers from Minute Maid Park in Houston to Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida. Ironically, just 2 weeks later, Hurricane Irma would force the stadium's regular tenants, the Tampa Bay Rays, to move 3 home games to Citi Field in New York City. Moody's Analytics initially estimated the total economic cost of the storm at $81 billion to $108 billion or more. Most of the economic losses are damage to homes and commercial property. Reinsurance company Ann Benfield estimated total economic losses at $100 billion, including $30 billion in insured damage, making Harvey the costliest disaster in 2017 by their calculations. USA Today reported an AccuWeather estimate of $190 billion, released August 31. On September 3, Texas State Governor Greg Abbott estimated that damages will be between $150 billion and $180 billion, surpassing the $120 billion that it took to rebuild New Orleans after Katrina. According to weather analytics firm Planalytics, lost revenue to Houston area retailers and restaurants alone will be approximately $1 billion. The Houston area controls 4% of the spending power in the United States. In September 2017, the Insurance Council of Texas estimated the total insured losses from Hurricane Harvey at $19 billion. This figure represents $11 billion in flood losses insured by the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, $3 billion in insured windstorm and other storm-related property losses, and about $4.75 billion in insured flood losses of private and commercial vehicles. By January 1, 2018, payouts from the NFIP reached $7.6 billion, against total estimated losses of $9.5 billion. Economists Michael Hicks and Mark Burton at Ball State University estimated damage in the Houston metropolitan area alone at $198.63 billion. Preliminary reporting from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration set a more concrete total at $125 billion, making Harvey the second costliest tropical cyclone on record, behind Hurricane Katrina, with 2017 costs of $161 billion, after adjusting for inflation. A significant portion of the storm's damages are uninsured losses. Regular homeowner insurance policies generally exclude coverage for flooding, as the NFIP underwrites most flood insurance policies in the U.S. Although the purchase of flood insurance is obligatory for federally guaranteed mortgages for homes within the 100-year floodplain, enforcement of the requirement is difficult, and many homes, even within the 100-year floodplain, lack flood insurance. In Harris County, Texas, which includes the city of Houston, only 15% of homes have flood insurance policies issued by the NFIP. Participation in the NFIP is higher, but still low, in neighboring Galveston, 41%, Brazoria, 26%, and Chambers counties, 21%. Homeowners sued authorities after reservoir